The race to replace outgoing Nebraska Governor Dave Heineman features two candidates with sharply different political views. Last week, there were violent protests and police were criticized for using excessive force in Ferguson, Missouri. Well, the holiday season is Amazon's busiest time of the year as online shoppers hope to scoop up the best deals in time for Christmas. Before the class action lawsuit was filed, Star City reporter Jack Grimsey took a closer look at the impact President Obama's executive order would have here in Nebraska. Nebraska Governor Dave Heineman says he will wait a few more weeks before deciding who his next lieutenant governor will be. Well, good things come in pairs, sometimes even for birthdays. Nebraska midterms are a heavy season for campaign spending. I looked into where these finances are coming from and what concerns can be raised from them. More than $15 million and counting has been spent by Nebraska candidates in this year's midterm. But where is the money coming from?
We're seeing a lot of out-of-state spending. A lot of these outside groups, they're really just trying to set up a 50-state strategy where they end up having more influence than traditional campaign organizations.
In the Senate race, Republican candidate Ben Sasse has raised almost $6 million, nearly 10 times what Democratic candidate Dave Domina has. Looking at where this is coming from, 63% of Sasse's contributions are from large contributors, whereas only 36% of Domina's financing is from those same groups.
Ben Sasse has been the big elephant in the room. He's gotten money from a lot of conservative groups, Tea Party groups, NRA, a wide variety of conservative groups are supporting him.
A lot of the ads are sponsored by the Republican Governors Association or outside conservative groups, and most of that money is raised in California, New York, Washington, D.C.
These larger contributions come from billionaire powerhouse donations. One of the largest contributors on the conservative side is the Koch brothers, who donate the majority of their money to the National Republican Congressional Committee. On the liberal side is George Soros, who founded American Progress, a liberal PAC. But Nader says these big dollars are not needed for the Nebraska midterms.
It probably won't affect much of the election outcome, just because the partisan diversity in the state is really just slanted towards the Republican Party.
But if these donators aren't helping to tip the scale, the concern is that they have a hand in controlling seats in Congress. This is the big picture of campaign spending and what it has become. Do you think that having Ashford, the Democratic candidate, in the House will affect Nebraska and just kind of what we see in the state?
Well, certainly you get a little bit more diverse representation in the House if you've got a Democrat there.
It's kind of interesting to look at Nebraska, which is such a predominantly red state. Why do you think that Ben Sasse did still get so much outside spending just financed into his campaign when he already was a little bit of a shoo-in just because we are such a heavily red state in Nebraska?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. And so if that's the case, then you might think that those are just groups that they know he's going to win, and therefore they'd like to kind of be on board with him once he gets in office.
Looking at some other issues like Initiative 425, how is that affecting the Democratic candidates in this year's race?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we won't know the answer to that question until tomorrow, and we know what turnout is. From the Democratic side, the big hope is that the ballot initiative to raise the minimum wage will attract traditionally Democratic constituencies to the polls.
Yeah, and do you think that he's trying to appeal to those people then, or is it just kind of falling into his lap?
Well, I mean, obviously he's appealing to those people, but it is really nice, especially in a midterm election when turnout tends to be a little bit lower. That tends to favor Republicans. When you have something on the ballot that appeals to those traditionally Democratic constituencies and maybe creates a little bit of buzz, a little bit more incentive to get out and vote, yeah, absolutely. I think that falls to Ashford's favor.
Definitely. And do you think that Lee Terry is going to be doing anything to combat that, since Initiative 425 is such a heavily Democratic issue?
Well, I think he's going to do what he can do. I mean, the polling numbers that I've read on the minimum wage is a lot of people are in favor of it.